The hunter, the prey, the stalker, the victim. Stealth is a mechanic that takes a lot to get right. The controls must be responsive. AI must be intuitive, but also a little dumb. Stealth lends itself to play really well with bombastic action set pieces or the terror of being caught by the enemy. The dichotomy of using stealth in action versus horror makes for interesting usage since the power dynamic is vastly different. In one game, you lie in wait in the bushes, waiting for the perfect opportunity to attack your enemy while they stumble closer to your position. While in another, you wait in the bushes, but frozen with fear as your pursuer surveys the area, sniffing the air, reacting to any sudden movements, drooling at the thought of your capture. One false move and you may have just become someone's dinner. I recommend staying put for just a little while longer. Sit back, don't move a muscle. Hold your breath for as long as you can. We will be analyzing stealth in 2 different genres. It's one of my favorite gameplay mechanics. The first stealth game that I could find to use basic stealth mechanics was a game called Manbiki Shunen that released in 1979. By basic, I literally mean the definition use of the word stealth, which defined by the Oxford Dictionary means cautious and surreptitious movement. Funny enough, the Guinness Book of World Records credits this feat to a game called 005 or 005, I don't know, and that released in 1981. All beside the point. From there, we started to see more games spawn from the genre, leading to what we are now seeing as franchise successes. Stealth evolved from the strictly basic movements to avoid an enemy encounter to also absorb elements of another genre. By that, I mean stealth featured mechanics that you would use in a specific genre to complement it. Metal Gear Solid, which has 7 million copies sold, and Hitman Code 47, which has 500,000 copies sold, to name a couple for the early days. That's a pretty successful start if you ask me. Well, now that I've covered the basics of the origins of stealth, let's get into why stealth is so complementary to action and horror games. What do you think of when I say the words stealth action? No, I'm not talking about a specific game, but rather what type of gameplay you get out of it. For me, I think about willingly entering an enemy area, being the predator, and oftentimes becoming overpowered although you are incredibly outnumbered. With stealth action, you often don't find yourself in the shoes of the victim. Even at the start of most games, you are given very little, yet you still have this sense of superiority that doesn't fade. If you run out of bullets or items, it doesn't matter because you were there to kill, no matter what the circumstance. You are given a specific mindset, and the setup, the gameplay, hell, even the color palette will constantly remind you of that. You are meant to tread that fine line between unflappable and terrified, but there's just enough there to keep you from remembering that circumstance. Looking at Metal Gear Solid 5, for example, that game undoubtedly is stealth action, but even includes some horror elements a la hiding from Sahelanthropus or running from the skulls. Each moment taking away that thinly veiled sense of power and reminds you of your humanity. So, if stealth action is a power fantasy, then what does that make stealth horror? Did you hear that? I think someone's coming. Stealth horror, not to be confused with survival horror, is a genre that takes away your ability to fight back completely, and you're only equipped with, well, typically just your body and some sort of light. I'm talking games like Amnesia, Outlast, or Little Nightmares. And if you do fight back, it's for the sake of a set piece rather than it being the basis of the gameplay. In survival horror, you're at least given the ability to fight back, albeit with very limited resources. Think of it like this. You make your way to an abandoned facility and you discover a paranormal cult. They capture you, but you break free. And now you have to find a way out while avoiding enemy encounters. Stealth horror. Now, imagine you find your way in that same situation, but you find a pistol with very limited ammo so you can attack your enemies. Survival horror. See, in stealth horror, you are the prey and nothing else. The only advantage you have is your skill not to be seen. You're not given a sense of superiority to power through your struggles. No, the exact opposite in fact. If you think about yourself right now, yes, as you're watching this video, what will happen if you were plucked and dropped into Outlast as is? Doesn't seem like the most pleasant experience, does it? But that's basically what stealth horror is, your vulnerable humanity up against extraordinary circumstances. I feel we play these games to put ourselves against these situations to feel as close to the edge as possible, because something like that could never really happen to us, right? Now you're probably thinking to yourself, duh, action and horror are basically opposites. Of course it's going to be different. Well, yes, and that's why I made this video. I wanted to point out how the same gameplay mechanic in different contexts can really highlight the genre it inhabits. You have to be aware of your surroundings in a different way. In stealth horror, you hide to save your life rather than to take another. In stealth action, mapping out where your enemies are becomes a chess game about which order to take everybody down, compared to mapping out the best route in order to slip by prying eyes. Stealth is such a versatile mechanic that it must be done right in order to make the player invoke the respective reaction for the genre. Shoehorning it in just doesn't do anything. Well done. You made it out of the woods unscathed. Seems like you wouldn't have had it not been for my informative breakdown. I would congratulate you, but I highly suggest not turning around. There it is, my February video. I did it, and I'm glad that I stuck to my word. Thanks again for spending some time with me to talk about stealth for a little bit. Now, here comes the typical YouTuber spiel. Be sure to like the video and comment what your favorite stealth action or stealth horror games are, even survival horror. I'd love to see what kind of gaming y'all are getting up to. And speaking of survival horror, starting sometime in March, I'll be streaming the entire mainline series of Resident Evil on Twitch in preparation for Village. As Agnes would say, it's gonna be a gas. So be sure to follow me there. Otherwise, that's it for me. I'll be seeing you next month for another video. Thanks again for watching and be well, friends.